Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to talk about some of the science associated with this. The science language that is used can be insanely boring, and I'll give you some examples of this, and it can actually hide the truth that they're trying to portray right smack dab in front of your face, but it's so science-y that it's hard to understand what they're saying. So, I'll give you some of those quotes. But first thing I want to do is just summarize something I'd mentioned earlier, which is that the report that everybody refers to, which says that radon is a problem at 4 picocuries per liter, it relied on health and safety effects study of cancer as relates to uranium miners that were in these dusty mines with a lot of uranium, of course, in the environment, and a ton of radon. Of course, where you find radon or uranium, you're going to find radon gas because it's decomposing at a certain rate. So they breathed dust and everything that came with it. I'd mentioned carbon monoxide and who knows what else there may have been, but we had a massive inhalation of radon included. And yes, those miners did have much higher levels of cancers as a result. Those guys were called cohorts. You might hear that term if you are talking to somebody who's actually read the studies. Chances are that they probably haven't. But those cohorts worked in uranium mines, they smoked, and there was, like I mentioned, a ton of dust associated with it. By the way, in the most recent study, EPA assumed that you are in your basement in a ton of dust. Nice thing about dust, if you want to increase the perceived risk or the calculated risk, is that you can actually have the uranium land on the dust gets into the air, gets into your lungs, and now you're into the lung tissues, and now the uranium that is on the dust turns into radium and polonium and radon, and now it's spitting radioactive particles inside your lungs for the next 100 years. It dramatically increases, the fact that there's dust actually dramatically increases the risk. So there was a lot of dust in these mines with these cohorts, and EPA studies also assume a lot of dust in your basement where you're living 24 hours a day for 72 years. So that's what the study says, and I mentioned that. Here's the new stuff. Bernard Cohen, who is a University of Pittsburgh professor, highly respected. He was mentioned in that study as one of the mitigating factors that they really didn't know how to deal with. But, this is not a fruitcake. He's very much respected within that health physics community. And his findings show that as radon levels increase, incidence of lung cancer decreases, which has to kind of stop all of us. I'm going to say that again. His studies, and this is a guy who's respected, who is one of the in crowd as far as the physicists are concerned, found that as you raise radon levels, lung cancers decrease. Now, he is not talking about a uranium mine where you've got these radon, radon levels that are monstrous, and you've got the dust levels and everything that comes with a mine. He's talking about homes and families and surface of the earth type stuff. He found, I'm going to say it one more time, this is huge, that as radon levels increase, incidence of lung cancers decrease. Now, in the world of health physics, this is called hormesis. And it goes very much against the straight line theory, which basically says that, higher on the radon curve, you're more risk, and lower, you're less risk, and it follows along a straight line as far as riskiness is concerned. Frankly, the linear regression analysis is kind of a lazy science, but it allows them to arrive at smaller numbers based on bigger numbers when they really don't know if that's a straight line or if it's a curve or if it goes flat or whatever it does. So linear regression is easy, and that's what has been used to arrive to calculate the perceived risk as presently reported by EPA. Now, that was Bernard Cohen. Then you've got the Health Physics Society, who shows that there is, and I'm quoting here, no risk of typical residential exposures or there is a decreasing risk of cancer. This is pretty much what Cohen said. After that, there are 5 states that have done their own studies. Of those, one showed that there is no correlation, meaning it's not more or less dangerous to have radon in the breathing air. And 4 actually shows that it is healthier. So you're seeing a trend here where actually it's showing that at normal levels of radon, and normal is up to debate what normal is, but we're talking not in a mine, then higher levels of radon can actually be good for you. Again, the term for this is hormesis. Now, in the study about radon that, again, always gets referred to, there is a paragraph that I would like to read to you, and this is why this information gets buried. First, I'm going to actually quote you the paragraph in there, and then I'm going to tell you what it means, because unless you're a whole lot smarter than me, it's not obvious what that paragraph means. Here goes. It says, unlike what was found with the more limited BEIR4 and ICRP analyses, the BEIR6 committee was able to conclude that the ERR per WLM increased with decreasing exposure rate, or with increasing exposure duration, parentheses, holding cumulative exposure constant. Now, if you can understand what that means, you are a whole lot smarter than I am. But if you break it down and you figure out what these guys are trying to say in their science ease, again, they are saying that in normal air, more radon can actually be good for you. So there's another one. That's actually in the study. This is not, again, this is not crackpots. This is the study that is quoted as being the reason why we are all doing radon mitigation. Finally, we have the Journal of National Cancer Institute. This is a study on 2,500 Finnish. Finnish not as in start and finish, but as in Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Finnish. Okay. They basically say that, I'm going to quote this, our results do not indicate an increased risk of lung cancer from indoor radon. It shows hormesis, which is that lives could be saved with more radon in the air. And then there's another study that shows while there are 14,000 people per the straight line assessment that are dying from radon, it also shows that 20,000 people could actually be saved if there was more radon that they were exposed to. Now, I'm an engineer, not a scientist. I've done radiation engineering. I don't personally understand why a little bit more radon can actually be healthy for me. The only thing I can compare that to is the water and potatoes example that I explained earlier. And in case you were having a potty break while you were doing that, I'll just briefly state it one more time. Science will show you that eating a year's worth of potatoes in one day will kill you from the heavy metals. I guess just the sheer amount of potatoes would explode your stomach, but that's kind of not the point. Year's worth of potatoes, the heavy metals will kill you. By contrast, a day's worth of potatoes will feed you. Same thing with water. I mentioned that. Millions of gallons of water will drown you. A couple of cups of water will hydrate you. But these sorts of factors are not included or addressed as relates to the radon study. Now, I don't want to be accused of being anti-science. I am a scientist. If you can say that an engineer is a scientist, then I'm a scientist. I respect these guys. The scientists are not trying to fool anybody. Their job is basically just to take the assumptions and do the best job that they can. I actually did some of these reports myself. I was basically told, okay, you've got these conditions and give us a risk number. And so, I talked about how I went through that procedure and some of the conservative assumptions that I used. And then I was also told, do not conclude or summarize what the risk may be. Just give them a number, 1 death per 100,000 or 2.39 deaths per 100,000. And so I was told, do not actually say this is dangerous or not dangerous. That's up to EPA to decide. And so then these reports go to EPA, and they can decide how they want to present the information that is provided by the scientists. So yeah, the last thing I want to do is tell you that all scientists are crackpots, because that would very much not be true. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the references that I'll provide you are by scientists, where if there is something other than direct truth that is being placed out there, you might want to look perhaps at the individuals who stand to benefit financially when the perceptions of risk are elevated. Okay, that's this segment. We'll be back with more.